I have two brief questions I'd like to ask, if I may.
Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone and you're watching The Daily Question. Today's question of the day: why is the news media becoming more superficial? Now, the reason I'm asking that question is because if you're anything like me and you regularly follow print journalism online, which is where you follow print journalism most of the time these days, you will have noticed there is an increasing amount of superficial, shallow, vacuous, gossipy tabloid stories that are appearing in our news media. It's becoming more and more and more common. Just yesterday, this article appeared in the local New Zealand media, just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Here's the headline: amateur photographer booted off community page for posting sunrise photos. He's booted off a Facebook page. And that's the story. They've run a whole story, a lengthy article about this. An amateur photographer's enthusiasm for sharing sunrise photos has seen him booted off a community social media page. Sean Noik, I think it is, had been posting images of Auckland's Waiheke Beach to a Torbay Facebook page daily since September until his ban just over a week ago. So this is, as you can see, this is huge and important news. This is like earth-changing stuff. This serious. This guy's been booted off a Facebook page. We've got to run an article about this. Noik understood he had been blocked from a page for quote-unquote subtle advertising by breaking a one-post-a-week rule that was aimed at businesses. In the week following his ban, there was a backlash on the Torbay Facebook page. So, the controversy and the drama really ramped up in that little community. And both admins left. They did not want to comment, with one saying he wanted to put the whole episode behind him. Can you imagine this on House of Cards? Stephanie Roach, one of the new admins, said it was up in the air as to why they left. More controversy. I'm assuming it was because Sean was banned and reinstated, and the backlash was around that. It wasn't a pleasant situation, name-calling, finger-pointing, so the admins decided to end their tenure. And that's only about a third to a half of that article. There's a lot more of that article. Now, we see more and more of that kind of superficial gossip content. That is not news. That is definitely not news. It's not even close to being newsworthy. Maybe, and I say just maybe, if it was one of those little local community newspapers, you might say that was newsworthy. But we're talking about one of our two major print media outlets in this country running that story, and it was on their main homepages, sort of in the top 4 or 5 stories that they have at the very top of the homepage on a daily basis. So why are we seeing more of this kind of superficial, gossipy, tabloid style stuff that's appearing in our news media, particularly the print news media? Well, first of all, I think it's because we're a lot less resilient as a culture than what we used to be. We have become very used to being pandered. In many ways, we're very decadent. And I think we have a tendency now, not all of us, but there's a tendency more often than not to throw our hands in the air and scream, "It's unfair what's happening to me," at increasingly minor things. Now, it's different if you're the victim of some sort of big corporate fraud, or you're the victim of some sort of, the bank smashing the little guy. It is appropriate, I think, to put your hand up and say, hey, this is not just what's happening here. But being removed from a Facebook page, that's not one of those incidents. Going into a store and seeing that there's a shelf of boys' toys and a shelf of girls' toys, and then having to contact the media and let them know that you're upset about this great evil of being separate shelves for boys and girls and their toys. That sort of story is becoming more and more common, and it indicates that we're less resilient than we've ever been. We are unable to deal with, either internally or within our own sort of little sphere of influence, those kind of issues when we encounter them. It's like we can't just process them, make a decision about what we're going to do and then get on with it. We have to turn this into some sort of big drama, some sort of big controversy. The whole world has to join us in our outrage over these kind of issues. We're also very self-referential too. I think that's not helpful. Social media probably really amplifies that problem, where we put ourselves at the center of of the universe, the known universe, and we tend to think basically that the issues that affect us, no matter how minor they might be, they are the most important issues in the whole world, and everyone should care about them. We think that our issue is so massive it should be newsworthy. And then, of course, there's the fact that the media is not just allowing this, but the media actually needs this type of content. And that, I think, is a really, really big factor here, because basically Because of the fact that particularly print journalism now is no longer behind a paywall in most instances, the advent of the internet really changed things for print journalism. And a lot of print journalism didn't respond well initially, and they thought that they could effectively just, I guess, go with what the internet demanded, which was news for free, because, you know, you go online and you get your stuff on the internet for free. So why wouldn't we get our news for free? Well, of course, the problem is that means your advertising revenue takes a big hit. And you're not selling a newspaper anymore with lots of advertising inches in it that you sell to advertisers, because people are not buying your newspapers because they want to read their news online for free. So you've got to come up with new ways to make advertising revenue. And of course, the online model for advertising is that it's driven by clicks. It's about people who click on your page and see advertising, or see and click on that advertising. So what do you need? You need lots of people clicking on your news website now. Now, of course, people are going to lose pretty quick interest in your news website if you try and stick to the old 24-hour news cycle. So most newspapers worked on a 24-hour cycle. They published an edition of their newspaper once a day. Some of the bigger outlets published 2 newspapers a day, which meant they were working on a 12-hour cycle. But that was sort of the most. Like, it was either 24 or 12 hours. You had a lot of time to prepare stories. People weren't expecting instant updates all the time, lots of new content. But the internet doesn't work like that. People want new content. They want to go to your website and they want to see refreshed and new content, and lots of it on a regular basis. And that's throughout the day, sometimes throughout an hour. And so what happens now is there's a demand for more and more content. But of course, you're receiving less and less revenue, so you can't afford to pay as many journalists, or journalists to spend as much time on their stories, because you've got fewer journalists now trying to produce more stories to meet this new demand. Investigative journalism goes right out the window. You've got to find a way to keep content coming on your site. And so basically the bar gets lowered, and you've got to really accept whatever you can find. Effectively, if it's got a tinge of drama, salaciousness to it, and that includes gossip, then effectively you can pump that out into the ethosphere, because people will click on it, and that helps your advertising revenue. And this has become, as I said, a really, really big problem. And the problem with it is that it's really dumbing down what the Fourth Estate should be. The Fourth Estate should not be a tabloid publication. The Fourth Estate actually serves a really important role in our society to keep government and corporations and other, I guess, what you might call the leadership sphere, the leadership class within our society, keep them accountable, to make sure that there is a good, honest, reliable, nuanced, balanced, objective reporting of facts about important issues. Not just any old thing because it's going to drive your advertising revenue. Because at that point, what are you doing? Why are you in the news game if you are pumping out more and more and more non-news, more and more gossip, more and more salacious stuff? Really, it becomes the self-perpetuating machine where the bottom line in journalism should really be about telling the truth as objectively as possible about important issues. That should be the primary focus. Now, you're going to have monetary concerns around that. You've got to raise money to be able to do that. Of course, I get that. That's a reality. But basically, this new model, the bottom line will no longer be about pumping out the truth about important issues in the most objective way possible. Instead, it's going to be about driving audience ratings, and it's going to be about driving clicks to your website, and therefore it's going to be, the bottom line is going to be, how much money can you make? And when that becomes your bottom line, telling the truth becomes less important, talking about important issues becomes less important, investigative journalism becomes less important. You've just got to pump a ton of content out into the atmosphere and hope like heck that people click on it so you can keep getting the money that you need to keep that machine alive and going. As per usual, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know what you think in the comments section below. And if you like the content I'm creating and you'd like to see more of it, then please support me on PayPal or Patreon. There is a link for both in the video description below. That's right, I can hear my theme music too. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Question.